And joining me now here on the program is the New South Wales Shooters and Fishers Party MP, Robert Borsak. Robert, thanks for your time. Do you agree with David Leyonhjelm, the Senator this morning, who suggested that more relaxed gun laws would have meant that this siege probably wouldn't have happened?
No, I don't think I could actually agree with that per se. I think the issue is not so much concealed carry and more firearms. The issue is, how did this fellow get that firearm, and why was the Prime Minister making noises about this guy being a licensed shooter when in fact he's never had a licence in his whole life?
Yeah, that issue you just mentioned, does that, in your view, highlight that the system that is meant to be monitoring firearms and providing up-to-date, accurate information is not working?
It certainly does. How can the Prime Minister of this country be informed at such a tragic time that this man, this terrorist, had a firearms licence when in fact he didn't? It just shows that the National Firearms Agreement is a broken thing, and it really does need to be very closely scrutinised and reviewed.
And so what do you point to as being the problem? Is it the communication between different agencies or something else?
No, I think the basic process of record keeping is the problem. Somehow or other, since 1996, the governments of Australia have managed to convince everybody that all they have to do is keep records and everything will be fine. Every time something goes wrong with a firearm, whether it's criminal or not, it always gets down to kicking the hell out of law-abiding firearms owners and tightening up, calls for more tightening up of gun laws. This is a clear illustration that none of that has worked. The 1996 National Firearms Agreement and all the firearms registries around Australia and the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, not to mention the 500 to 600 million spent on buybacks, has been a total and complete failure.
So do you believe then that gun laws should be relaxed rather than tightened, as the Greens for one have suggested?
I think the gun laws we've got now are perfectly adequate. I think what isn't adequate is the record-keeping processes and the integration of these laws between state and federal agencies. We know for a fact that the National Federal Police, with their CrimTrack system, have been tracking law-abiding firearms owners on their criminal tracking system. What they really should be doing is putting time and money into actually cracking the problem, and that is getting into the criminals and sorting them out, not sorting out law-abiding firearms owners. Every time there's a tragic incident, and this is yet another example of that, there are more cries for tighter gun control, but in reality, tighter gun control hasn't brought us to the lives back of two people who were tragically murdered by a terrorist in the last few days.
So how do you think illegal firearms should be taken off the streets? Do we need another gun buyback, for example?
Well, therein lies the problem. Criminals don't register their firearms. Criminals don't sell their firearms in buybacks. What happens, of course, is criminals, and this man was a criminal, he was a convicted criminal, what they do is simply hang on to their firearms while the law-abiding firearms owners get it in the neck yet again. The reality is we don't know.
What about an amnesty then in that case?
Well, our party's been calling for an amnesty for over a decade. And New South Wales government, at least, and I don't know about the rest, simply say an amnesty is not, they're not going to do it, they're not prepared to accept it. We would recommend an amnesty, but in the end of the day, an amnesty isn't the only thing that's going to sort this out. What the government needs to do is spend money not on more registration, not on national registries, more wasted cash on CrimTrack systems that are not tracking criminals properly, let alone tracking law-abiding firearms owners. What they should be doing is getting into the criminal intelligence area and working very hard to make sure that they find out where these firearms are hidden. The other thing they should do is spend some real money on stopping the porous borders of Australia. This is a federal problem. They inspect something like less than 3 to 4% of all containers that come into Australia. How on earth are they ever going to stop firearms that are being illegally smuggled into Australia when they're only looking at that level? Concentrating on the law-abiding firearms owner, this tragic event shows us, hasn't solved a thing.
Just on those who legally obtain firearms, is that something that's becoming more prominent? Are more people legally buying guns in Australia?
Look, I think there's a steady growth of legal firearms ownership in Australia. I think that's true. New South Wales has seen a steady growth on the back of primarily hunting and sporting shooting activities, clay target shooting, for example. Queensland, I think, has seen the same, and I know Victoria's seen the same on the back of public land hunting, primarily deer hunting and things like that, duck shooting, etc. But none of these firearms that are involved in those law-abiding activities would have been available to this criminal a couple of days ago. The reality is he was shooting, as far as I'm informed, a pump-action sawn-off 12-gauge shotgun. Now, they're not available to an ordinary citizen who has an ordinary firearms licence. I can't get one, and I don't want one. It's as simple as that. The reality is...
Are we a safer society with more guns out there in the community, whether it's, well, I'm talking about legally in the community?
Well, if you're saying, are we a safer society with more illegal guns out there, the answer, of course, is no, we're not safer.
No, legal guns.
I don't think we're any less safe today than we were in 1996. The actions of a lunatic, the actions of a terrorist, as tragic as they are, do not give the government licence to scapegoat over 1 million law-abiding firearms owners in Australia.
And just, you touched on some of the sort of backlash against those who lawfully obtain or have firearms in this country. Has your office had much correspondence from members of the public in the wake of this shooting this week?
Look, my office has really only had correspondence from law-abiding firearms owners. I don't think we've had anything coming in from anybody else, not to this stage anyway. And what they're saying is what I'm exactly saying now. The focus not yet again needs to be kicking the hell out of law-abiding firearms owners. That doesn't affect the criminals. The criminals don't register their firearms. The criminals don't give up their firearms in amnesties. The criminals don't do these things. The reality is that firearm that he had came from some source that was not generally available to the ordinary citizen. It was either smuggled into Australia or it was a pre-96 one that was not handed in any amnesty, and it's been circulating probably in the black market for the best part of nearly 20 years.
Robert Borsak from the New South Wales Shooters and Fishers Party, and of course the New South Wales Parliament as well. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.